Being myself was so much easier than trying to be a chameleon and wear the masks for everyone else to please them.
Being myself was so much easier than trying to be the chameleon and wear the mask to please everybody else. Oh my gosh, I have goosebumps everywhere.
Welcome to the Leadership Laboratory podcast. Thank you for tuning in. My goal is to deliver immediately applicable tips so that you can experiment with your leadership style. If there's one thing that all successful leaders I've worked with have in common, it is knowing that leadership is one big experiment. And simply adapting that mindset allows leaders like you to reduce the fear of failure and shift your focus to progress over perfection. So get ready for motivation and inspiration. And joining me today is one of my favorite women, the revered and respected Vanessa Bower. Vanessa is a talent practice lead at ADP. Vanessa has worked in talent acquisition and recruiting for over 15 years across multiple industries like pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, and business services. She's passionate about building meaningful connections, mentoring others, and driving process improvements. And when she's not at work, you will find her with her two adorable boys, her wonderful husband, or maybe even testing out sourdough recipes or reading a good book. I've had the pleasure and honor of knowing Vanessa for over 2 years now. So Vanessa, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Jamie.
I am so happy you are here too. And the leadership skill that we're talking about today, it's actually a combination. We're talking about public speaking as well as being a thought leader, a subject matter expert, which is something that your leader had challenged you to become. And to kick off our conversation, I will share that I am looking on my phone right now at pictures that you texted me. They're of you standing confidently on a stage at a national convention in Las Vegas giving a presentation. And I can just tell from these photos, you are confident, you are conveying expertise, and you've got your audience engaged. Vanessa, can you tell us what it felt like to step into that opportunity?
Yeah, I will tell you that if you were to tell me that I was going to be doing that, I would have said no way. Public speaking, especially live in person. I know post-COVID, everyone is doing the Zoom thing, but being in front of a live audience and presenting on a topic within my industry, it's just not something that I thought I was going to get to achieve or do or have that opportunity. So it was a really great one that I was able to accomplish.
It was a huge accomplishment. I remember even that morning you sent me a text, so I pretty much like standing in your power pose with your outfit ready to go, like I've got this. And I love that you had that mindset and that mantra going in. And after you gave that presentation, you received a lot of positive feedback from your leader, correct?
Yeah, I did for my leader. And then it was my company convention that I went to, and there were our clients were the audience members, and I did get really great feedback there from those individuals directly. So that was really great to receive and know that I could do that, right, and be able to move that forward.
Absolutely. Very, very affirming and a sign of hard work because that didn't just happen by accident. I know before stepping on stage, you had mentioned, we talked about this earlier, just, the good old imposter syndrome, good old imposter monster, or, wanting to speak confidently and, wondering how to get there. Can you tell us a little bit about those challenges, what that looks like for you?
Yeah. You and I started our conversations 2 years ago, and I think the Vanessa that you saw then was a very different one now, not just physically because I was pregnant when I first contacted you. Uh, Also just who I am from like a mental state and how I see myself and the woman that I've stepped into from a leadership perspective. 2 years ago, I was in a role that I was very comfortable in, very confident. I not that I could do it with my eyes closed, but it was a very easy role and it wasn't challenging anymore. And I stepped into this new role within my organization. I had really big shoes to fill. And with that role, it was just completely out of my comfort zone. I was being asked to do things that I had never done, run meetings that I'm never done it that way. I was asked my opinion, which was great, but also, okay, we're gonna, how do I voice my opinion? And I had a lot of questions of, am I gonna sound stupid? It's come out right what's in my head and what I'm going to verbalize. So it was just a very different place 2 years ago. Yeah, imposter syndrome was real. Well, it was very real in that moment.
And I remember when you contacted me, I mean, I really admired when you reached out because you were very just honest and humble, and you just like you said, like, "Hey, I've got this new role coming up. I need to formulate my opinion. I need to formulate my leadership persona." But just like you're saying, like, what I'm being asked for my opinion, what is my opinion? And how can I articulate that in a way that conveys the confidence and even the challenge that your leader had given you to become the disruptor? I mean, that takes courage and confidence to do that too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, stepping from an operational role to a true leader role, and where having a seat at the table is what I'll say. Especially when it comes to opinions and being able to have the autonomy to really structure my role the way I wanted to, and move things in the direction I wanted to. I never had something like that. But yeah, when I came to you, I was like, I really need to figure this out. I did tell Jamie that I was 8 months. I think I was like 8 months pregnant when I contacted you.
You're very pregnant.
Maternity leave soon. I need to figure this out before I come back from maternity leave on how I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah, and you did, and that was a particularly unique time too, because that's one of when you're going through something very significant in your personal life, that's a classic circumstance that you'll find self-doubt, riding shotgun and essentially whispering lies in your ear, telling you things that on a day when you're fully rested and don't have, personal stress or change going on, you would never question. But then you get in that state of a new situation, and especially one where the stakes are high, you've got, a tiny human in your case, you begin to question like what you can do or what you could do. And it's a really dangerous space in your mind because if you give in to those thoughts, you create more of those thoughts. Can you recall, Vanessa, something that a thought that helped you challenge imposter syndrome, or a way in which you flipped your narrative, you flipped your story to say, wait a second, actually, that's not true. This is true.
Yeah, I think it truly came through with getting feedback from my manager directly. And I remember telling, I have such big shoes to fill that I'm not the previous person that was in this role. I'm not her. And having him say to me, I hired Vanessa Bower. Not- And I was like, oh, you believe in me. Okay. I was trying to fill. I think this falls into the authenticity piece. I was trying to be who I thought everyone needed me to be, what they wanted me to be, and getting that feedback and receiving it as, I want you to be you. I want you to challenge people. I want you to disrupt the like challenge the norm. I don't want you to step into the shoes of the last individual. I want you to be you. Was just like, oh, to know I was hired for the role to be myself and not to be something else, was like that switch that happened. But then I also had to find who was Vanessa, right? Like, who was she? Because she was being a chameleon for everyone else in the workplace of, whatever you need me to be, I'm going to be that person. And I think a lot of women that I've spoken to feel that way. And we have to kind of figure out, like, where do we fit in and how do we find our authentic self? I really, the women who are authentically themselves, like, my hat goes off to you, because that was really hard for me to figure out.
When you lead with your authentic self, it takes the least amount of energy. And I think all of us are interested in energy preservation, or, anything that we can do to increase our energy. Can you think of some examples of what that looks like for you to be authentic you, of when you said, no, that like, this is Vanessa. These are the shoes that I'm standing in.
Yeah, I think being my authentic self is not worrying about other people's opinions. When your opinion is asked, my opinion is being asked for a reason, not to just go along with what everyone else is saying. And it's a hard, don't get me wrong, it's a really hard role to step into and challenge others in a professional way to figure out, where you stand. I think a lot of times, just an example is just being able to be yourself. Things happen. I was on a meeting, and this individual that is her authentic self. I remember we were on this business meeting and she was like, "Oh, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I was looking at a ladybug." And it was just like, "What? You can't say that." But you know what? It was just like, she's a real person. We are all people, not just drones going through business life. So I think that, it's just really being true to yourself.
Mhm. And well, and I love that you said you stopped worrying about other people's opinions. Taking things personally can be a very heavy burden to carry. What do you think shifted in you that empowered you to be able to do that?
I think it was truly the cohort that we were a part of. The three pillars, and being with other women and being able to be vulnerable and experiment in that state without there being a professional repercussion. Right. Like, I could tell you my full blown opinion in the workplace, but if that tone is off or if that wording is wrong, it's gonna be seen a different way. So to bounce ideas off of other women and just say, "Hey, this is how I would handle this. Can you role play it with me? How does this sound? How is the tone? Are the words aligned to what I'm trying to portray here of being, whether it be I was trying to be direct, I was trying to be consultative or whatever." There was that group to kind of help me from that perspective. They were the ones who really allowed me to first be my authentic self because there was nothing on the line with them per se, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so I could play. It was like a sandbox, a playground to figure out, and to have them tell me, I don't think you come across mean at all, when that's how I portrayed myself for so many years in the workplace. I think it's that RBF, for the most part, but we've worked through that, and it was just a really great experience with that cohort.
Oh, I love that you share that, Vanessa. And yes, the sandbox, or the laboratory, if you will. What Vanessa mentioned, the three pillars of leadership, and that is a leadership course that's available in the leadership laboratory community. And to your point, Vanessa, it's a place where you can experiment, where there are no consequences, and you can get the opinions, the feedback from other people to say, actually, I think that sounded great, or maybe your tone could use a little dialing in there. Words in our head sound very differently when they come out of our mouth, and that the level of difference increases even more when you've got a high stakes audience. So to your point, that ability to just to play around and to practice in a low stakes supportive environment is very important, because there's a big misconception that talking and communication are synonymous terms. And I think there's a lot of false assumptions that because we know how to talk, we know how to communicate. And those are two different things. Talking is a behavior that we all know how to do, whereas communication is a skill and it takes practice. And so I love that, you embrace the humility of that and said, yeah, let me see what this is like. And also just, what is your voice and what is your face saying? Because it can be a little tricky to judge that for yourself, but to have those compassionate mirrors, the other people in the cohort who are working on very similar things that you were, to be able to say, "Hey, tweak this, tweak that," or like, "No, it's great, you got it. Do it again." Right? Take two. Let's practice and rehearse one more time.
Exactly. Yeah, they were my biggest cheerleaders and helpers on this journey for sure. So shout out to that cohort.
For sure, for sure. The sherohood is alive and well. Sherohood is she plus hero plus sisterhood. Once you had your plan, Vanessa, and you started to find your voice, your persona, your leadership style, as you said, I'm not here to fill that person's shoes, but you did have essentially a bigger shoe size to step into. Did you have any challenges? Did you have any roadblocks at that point, or did anything surprise you along the way?
I think the roadblocks were more mental. Like, how was I going to do this? I had people in my corner who were backing me up that I didn't know were backing me up, which is great. That I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to get to where I needed to get to or what that path looked like. It wasn't a beautiful yellow brick road, right? Like it was rocky. Um I think what I've learned is that mentors are super important. Get those in place. And those are areas where, similar to the cohort, low stakes, you have the experimentation and the sandbox to really navigate those paths. I think for me too is I had to really challenge myself to figure out where I needed to go and just be open and honest. Being vulnerable is super humbling for sure. Um, Ask for help and say, "This is where I think I wanna go. How do I get here? Please help me." Yeah, so being vulnerable took a lot of courage, but had I not done that, I wouldn't be where I am now, and I wouldn't change that path that I had to take for anything.
Absolutely. And I want to rewind this. I want to pull a little thread of something you said because I think it's so important that you had people supporting you, cheering you on that you didn't even realize. How did you realize that? How did you discover that you had this underground cheering section?
Yeah, so I it came from my leader being direct with me of what he wanted out of me, and then from there, I asked for additional feedback from others and realizing that each person had said, "I have your back in one way or another. I wanna see you succeed in this role," which was just honestly, it just felt like, "Okay, I've landed." This job was a really big jump for me and truly out of my comfort zone, but the team I'm working with is here to make sure that I succeed as well.
Yes. Well, it sounds like through your humility, through asking for help, you gave other people the opportunity to do that, to voice that for you. And we all like to be helpful. We all like to lend a hand to people. And like you said, setting your ego aside and doing that, it helps culminate or I should say cultivate a sense of trust. And if I'm hearing you correctly, you found your belonging in that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
he was seeking out feedback. Honestly, I'm a little bit of a people pleaser, especially 2 years ago, and I was trying to figure out what they wanted me to be, but everyone just said, "I have your back." So,
So ultimately they wanted you to be you.
yes, yes, 100%. Being myself was so much easier than trying to be a chameleon and wear the masks for everyone else to please them.
Being myself was so much easier than trying to be the chameleon and wear the mask to please everybody else. Oh my gosh, I have goosebumps everywhere. I'm so excited for you, and I hear the energy, I hear the transformation. I hear the confidence in you, and I love the humble, courageous journey that you took to get there. It's incredibly inspiring and empowering.
Thanks.
Well, for our listeners, what advice, what suggestion would you give them to experiment with their leadership style, whether that's in the sandbox or the laboratory to find their voice? What do you think are some tactical steps that they could take?
Yeah, I think if you're gonna fall, just from my own experience, right, is get a mentor. Get a mentor. It doesn't even have to be within your company. It doesn't have to be within your division of your company or your industry, but just get a mentor to help you. Uh, that's a great way to get the low stakes piece that I'm looking for, that experimentation that I was talking about. It'd be great if you can create a peer group, but that would be great too. I just think if there's a mentor out there that you can connect with, that was a game changer for me personally. And I think really just being honest with yourself. Am I doing this because this is what everyone else wants me to do? Or am I doing this for myself? Like what feels good, which is sometimes so hard because your head and your heart think two different things, especially in the business world. I really truly feel that those who are truly themselves and authentically themselves, they're able to make things happen a lot easier. And it just feels right
Mhm.
in the moments.
Well, and I hear the authenticity of what you're saying of just giving yourself permission to listen to your heart, not your head. And in a lot of corporate environments, especially women in male dominated environments, we're conditioned to stay in our head. In tough environments and challenging situations, you kind of have to stay in your head to not be overcome by emotion. But what I find is when you do that for too long, you lose sight of what you want and who you are. Like to your point, Vanessa, you're kind of playing the game according to somebody else's rules. But when you take time to pause and listen, it could be a scary space for self reflection, but it's so important because that's the sustainable version of you, the one that your heart is telling you, I need to go this way, not that way. And again, I nod my head to you for raising your hand and saying, yeah, I want to find her.
Yeah, and it's been I agree with you because I'm not drained at the end of the day. Like, trust me, work is a little draining, but, like, I'm not trying to stand on top of it, right? The amount of times that especially in a male-dominated industry, have been told, "Are you okay? Your face on that call, you were just a little stoic."
Hmm.
That's just it. That's just my face at this point. I'm not gonna smile and nod because that makes you feel better. Um no, I just have to be true to myself to an extent.
Well, and I'm thrilled that you're in an environment that recognizes that, respects it, and encourages it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, before we wrap up, Vanessa, is there a final lesson, story, or resource that you think our audience should know or hear about? You mentioned accountability being a big part of this, but what do you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the theme of this was just be your authentic self. Truly be that person, figure out who she is, what she looks like, what it feels like to step into that, to have your power pose, right? Life's easier when you're playing alongside your authentic self versus against that person.
100%. Very well said.
In
All
business.
right, business and in life. Final humble question. Was it out of your comfort zone to be a guest on this podcast? Because I know you do the reverse. You lead these sessions. Was this out of your comfort zone?
This is out of my comfort zone. I'm usually the more dominant one in this conversation. At work, I lead a similar type podcast conversations on a monthly basis for my team. And then I also do client webinars for my company. And it's just so strange to be on this side where someone's asking me the questions. But this is good. This is great. I'm so happy that we got to connect.
Likewise. So out of your comfort zone, but you're glad you did it?
Yes, and I think that's a good key thing too, like, get out of that comfort zone, because 'cause you're never gonna grow. You won't grow. So happy that, I was able to be on your podcast.
Excellent. Well, admittedly, I was leading the witness a little bit on that question, but I'm glad that you recognized it and are encouraging others to just step out of comfort zones too. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much. It's always such an honor for me to spend time with you. And now we get to share our time with others as well. Your insights, I know, will help listeners not just to feel empowered, but to be empowered, to use their voices, ask for the feedback, seek out the support, like you mentioned, and find their authentic selves. And speaking of support, listeners, join us, please. Don't let the conversation end here. Come on over to jamiemckinney.com/lab to join the community, and you can use promo code podcast for $100 off of a membership. Lastly, thank you for listening to today's episode. Before you close out, before you hit X on that top right corner, please hit like, subscribe, or leave a review. That would mean a lot to me and help ensure more of these episodes keep coming. Well, until next time, listeners, keep experimenting, keep growing, and focus on progress over perfection.